Gentlemen, welcome to Night Court, where the justice is blind, the criminals are clueless, and I'm pretty sure at least half our cases could be solved by not holding someone's beer when they asked you to. Look, we have some really interesting cases tonight that'll make you wonder, was that real? Did someone actually do that? And the answer, friends, is yes. This is America. You know what they said in the classic art house film, An American Tale? In America, there are no mouse holes. In every wall in America. There are breadcrumbs on every floor. And this, I know for a fact. In America, there are no cats. But back home in Mother Russia, I mean, maybe that's not applicable. But it was still fun. It's my show, damn it, and I can quote 38-year-old cartoon movies if I want to. So listen, let's dive in. Now this real story. A thief in Marathon, Florida, was arrested after authorities say he stole over $1,300 worth of toothbrushes from a Walgreens. Yes, forget cash, forget jewelry. This guy was gunning for dental appliances. I mean, look, I get it. Oral hygiene's important, and it's expensive. Whatever the reason, somebody needs to give this guy a plaque. A rim shot, please. I still need a band. How does Colbert do it? I got nothing. So, they catch this guy, right? And he says, I thought the toothbrushes were complimentary. Sure you did, buddy. You know, another one in Florida, a guy tried to rob a convenience store armed with, wait for it, an alligator. Yeah, that's right. The poor cashier sees this guy holding an alligator under one arm, like it's a weapon, yelling, "Give me the cash or the gator gets it." I mean, who needs a gun when you've got an alligator? What's the cashier going to do? I mean, I guess he could give him a vino for that oh-so-scaly skin. I mean, if that wasn't bad enough, his defense in court was, well, at least the alligator is sustainable. Yes, sustainable crime. You heard it here first. Florida's going green. That sounds a lot funnier out loud than it did when it was written. I guess he's probably starting to trend by now, and by next week, someone will be robbing banks with raccoons. I mean, hey, they already have a mask on, and they're really grabby. Yeah, that's enough for the opening. Here on Night Court, we laugh in the face of danger, and we chuckle right through the chaos. Just remember, don't rob a store with an alligator, and keep your toothbrush purchases to a single pack. Let's get down to some monkey business with the word on the street. Well, here's a tale so twisted it would give even Florida man whiplash. Clown suits, affairs, balloons delivered, and if I get whacked, it was probably Mike Claus. Only in Florida, my friends. So let's rewind to 1990. We've got Sheila Keene, who allegedly took dressing up to a whole new level by donning a full clown suit to pull off the ultimate, I just wanted to say hello visit. She rings the doorbell, hands Marlene Warren some balloons, and bam! It's a murder mystery so bizarre it needs its own therapist. Cut to 2017, 27 years later. The authorities finally collar Sheila Keene Warren. Yep, she married her former boss, Michael Warren, whose wife she allegedly shot. Awkward family reunions, am I right? Ooh. Apparently, some technological improvements led the cops to connect her to orange hair fibers in the abandoned getaway car. But despite that, the case has more holes than Swiss cheese at a firing range. The case was a real circus from the start. So Sheila strikes a deal. She pleads guilty to second-degree murder, insists on her innocence, and claims that pleading guilty was just the quickest route out of prison. She's released after 12 years. 7 already served for good behavior because, who would have thought good clowns are just hard to come by? And now she's free, reuniting with her family, lawyer in tow, just shouting, "She didn't do it!" Marlene's son, meanwhile, recalls the day his mom opened the door to that clown's special delivery. It basically had a balloon that read, "You're the greatest," which is hardly the most comforting message from someone packing heat. Witnesses remember Sheila Keene buying a clown costume and balloons days before, and they traced the silver balloon back to one Publix near Sheila's house, because nothing says "I didn't do it" like a personalized store balloon. And let's not forget Michael Warren, Marlene's husband and the lucky winner of a used car lot empire. Marlene reportedly told her mom, "If anything happens to me, Mike done it." That's a direct quote. Chilling last words if there were ever any. He's never been charged, though he did a stint for grand theft, racketeering, and odometer tampering. Basically, Florida's greatest hits of shifty business. He was the dad from Matilda, just like, wheeling that thing back. And with that, Sheila Keene Warren now walks free, leaving all of us with one big question. Was it love? Or was she just clowning around? On another note, this is a story all about how my life got flipped by a squirrel in a crown. And I'd like to take a moment, just sit right there. I'll tell you how Peanut the squirrel became the prince of Pine's air. In rural Pine City, born and raised with raccoons and squirrels, I spent most of my days chilling out, maxing, just feeding my crew, posting pics on the gram, getting likes from you, when a couple of folks who were up to no good wanted to take my squirrel out to neighborhood. They left a few calls. DEC got scared and said, "You're housing wild critters, prepare to be snared." I pleaded and begged with them day after day, but they cuffed my squirrel friend and took him away. They grabbed Fred the raccoon, didn't give him a say, and said, "You're keeping wild animals not okay. First class yo to wildlife jail. Peanut's big crime, too cute with a tail. He's a social media star, not some kind of thug, but they took him away. Won't give back my snug bug." Now I'm here in Pine City right out of luck with the squirrels and the raccoons that DEC plucked. This story ain't over. No, it's just begun. They messed with the prince, and the prince won't run. That went on a little longer than one would have intended it to. That's okay. It sounds like a joke, but Peanut the Instagram squirrel has made the news. He's a social media influencer, which tells you exactly how far we've fallen regarding the definition of influencer. Makes me feel real good. In either case, a New York man named Mark Longo, living his best life with a squirrel in a cowboy hat and a raccoon named Fred. But suddenly, in rolls the Department of Environmental Conservation, or the DEC, with enough manpower to storm Fort Knox, all because, well, someone had a problem with a squirrel and his pal. Now, Mark says he's chilling at home when 6 DEC officers, yes, 6, show up without a warrant, guns blazing, ready to confiscate a fluffy little internet star. He said, quote, "They treated me like I was Pablo Escobar, but with squirrels." The DEC snatched up Peanut, the squirrel with hundreds of thousands of adoring fans on TikTok and Instagram, and Fred the raccoon, the quiet, mysterious new guy in the animal sanctuary. It was a full-blown wildlife intervention. Now, the DEC's official statement reads like a classic government line. They were acting on, quote, multiple reports from the public about potentially unsafe wildlife housing. Translation: some guy in his basement saw Peanut in a cowboy hat eating waffles on Instagram and thought, that's gotta be illegal. It's kind of like a whole, if I can't have nice things, nobody can. It's not my fault. You're hanging out in your parents' basement. Heartbroken, Mark took to Instagram to tell Peanuts fans that their beloved internet squirrel had been taken away by the squirrel cops. Congrats, internet, he wrote. You got the DEC involved over a squirrel and a raccoon. I hope you're happy. This is apparently where we are now. People doom scroll on Instagram until they see a squirrel they don't trust and, well, they call in reinforcements. Now, Peanut's backstory is a true Disney origin story. Mark first found him after Peanut's mom was hit by a car. He nursed the baby squirrel back to health and then tried to release him into the wild. But you know what? Peanut was not having that. The little guy said, basically, he came back. So he left, he came back, he said, I'm done. He came back missing half his tail, saying, no thanks, I'll have my food served, not scavenged. So Mark made Peanut his house squirrel, complete with house coat, house slippers, house... it's a cute thought anyways. But really, the internet did what the internet does and turned Peanut into a star. Peanut became a sensation, sitting on Mark's shoulder, rocking tiny bunny ears, just being his quirky squirrel self. This was no ordinary squirrel. He was the squirrel king, adored by the masses, except winter was coming, and he was a Stark. I tried way too hard. Fast forward to 2023, Mark, now a full-on animal whisperer, opens the Peanuts Freedom Farm Animal Sanctuary with his wife, taking in hundreds of animals, horses, goats, alpacas, but Peanut, he's still the OG. Unfortunately, Mark's aware that it's technically illegal to keep a squirrel as a pet, but he was filing paperwork to make Peanut a certified educational animal. Because let's be real, that's one squirrel who deserves tenure. And Fred, the raccoon, he was a short-term house guest. Just a raccoon with a little owl situation that Mark planned to rehab and send back to the woods. But here we are, with Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon now part of a growing list of exotic animals seized by New York authorities. Recently, some guy near Buffalo even had his pet alligator taken away. These are strange, strange times when you have to fight the government to get your alligator back. So, will Peanut be freed? Only time, paperwork, and probably a reality show will tell. And with that, let's go ahead and get into the brief. All right. Now we have a story with almost everything, including throwing tortellini against the wall and seeing... I feel like you have to do this when you say tortellini. Tortellini against the wall and seeing what sticks. Wait. What? Share. What did you write? That's not right. It's a... Well, I mean, it's interesting. It's a case of matricide, dismemberment, and the crazy that comes with the family. So Torilena Fields, whom I refer to as tortellini shells in my head because, you know what, it's been a really hard week. She's been charged with murder, abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, torture of a dog or cat, and obstructing governmental operations. Hold on. Torture of a dog or cat. Hey, everybody, send your pets out of the room. Viewer discretion is preferred. Can't take myself seriously anymore. On October 9th, 2024, a contractor working on the property of Trudy Fields, 68, discovered a crime scene involving a partial female body and bloody objects and called the police. Kentucky State Police, KSP, responded. The contractor told authorities he had been on the property the day before and met both Trudy Fields, the homeowner, and her daughter, Torilena Fields, 32. During the time on the property that day, the contractor claimed Torilena tried to cast spells on him and his coworker. When Trudy did not answer the door on the morning of October 9th, the contractor walked around the property to find her, but found the crime scene instead. Officers followed drag marks behind the residence and found Trudy Fields' dismembered body. Her arms, legs, and head had been removed. They also found a blood-stained mattress folded over with several body parts concealed inside and other bloodied materials nearby. The murder indictment filed against Torilena, revealed that Trudy I like it when my staff tickles my funny bone. Revealed that Trudy had been stabbed multiple times. That's not funny. Cut. Retake. Revealed that Trudy had been stabbed multiple times, shot in the head, and dismembered. The alleged killer was reportedly under the influence of drugs, you don't say, when police arrested her. According to investigators, the arrest report did not specify what kind of drugs. Like Penelope Garcia once said, "Baby girl, just say no." Now where's Chocolate Thunder? If I quote her, do I get him? No? Okay. Torilena refused to answer officers when they tried to contact her inside the home. So a search warrant was obtained and a special response team was called in. Using tear gas and a robot, the officers were able to coax a blood-covered Torilena out of the house. Once inside the house, KSP reported that troopers found charred body parts inside a pot that was in the kitchen's oven and, quote, still warm to the touch. Is a pot in the oven the new method for cooking pasta? Too soon? Despite the shocking nature of the alleged crime, Torilena had been carving out word choice, a different path for herself that was unlike the dark events surrounding her mother's death. A few years prior, she had moved to California to pursue a career in Hollywood using the stage name Naomi Navarre. She is like crackhead Jessica Rabbit. Okay. She was somewhat successful on social media platforms and appeared in 2 films. Her life-going passions were acting, modeling, and singing. Her inactive Instagram profile presents a sharp contrast to her mugshot. Her account has been inactive since September of 2022, but she still has around 154,000 followers. Does that mean that I need to become crackhead Jessica Rabbit? Is that what we need to do to get this done? I mean, whatever. At this point, I'll do whatever. Anyways, Torilena Fields always dreamed of becoming a famous actress. She was voted biggest flirt in her senior year high school yearbook. Flirting with danger and jail time. Family members told media that Torilena was in a motorcycle accident a few months prior to the crime while in California and sustained a severe brain injury. The injury resulted in memory loss, causing her to forget her name and her whereabouts. Many family members were unaware that Torilena returned to her mother's home in Robertson County. But those who did know believed that Trudy was helping her cope with the ongoing effects of the accident. The family also confirmed, without providing details, that they had heard Torilena had an interest in either Satanism or witchcraft. I've never met a Satanist or a witch that would do this. Torilena is being held on $1.5 million bond and is in custody in the Bourbon County Detention Center. To add to the family intrigue, 2 days after the murder, Torilena's sister, Telby Fields, filed a petition for an emergency protection order against their brother, Truett Fields. Oh, is it too soon for me to file for an emergency protection order too? That's a face. Telby wrote in the petition that, quote, "My mother was butchered by my sister under his advisement." Telby further claimed that both Truett Fields and Torilena Fields had threatened their mother for years, and so that's what happened. The petition alleges that Truett Fields had threatened the lives of both Trudy and Telby Fields, as well as the whole family. The petition further alleges that Truett Fields threatened to kill Telby Fields to claim his birthright as the firstborn. Telby Fields wrote, quote, "When my body is found, Truett Fields murdered me." Torilena isn't the only family member with a knack for the dramatic, apparently. The emergency order was granted, and Truett was ordered not to go near Telby Fields nor to attend their mother's funeral. But after a hearing a few weeks later, the order was not made permanent because none of the threats were current, nor was there any evidence that Truett had anything to do with Trudy's murder. Truett said he was in California on the day of the murder and hadn't left the state since. He said that Torilena had lived with him until she had returned to Kentucky in August. Some family members testified about Truett's strange behavior in the past, including, is this what we call strange now? You know what? I'm going to say it and then I'll ask you the question. You don't know what it says, only I do. Strange behavior in the past, including hanging dead animals on fences. One other brother recounted a story that Truett thought a dragon tattoo on his back was turning him into a dragon. Cue Hannibal Lecter, I suppose. I would call this strange. The definition of strange, I don't know if that fills the spot for that. His brother Titus said, "I stopped talking to him. He got too crazy and into cultish acting." We will follow this case for updates, and the true mystery, however, is just how does this family enjoy their Southern tea? Did Trudy, Torilena, Truett, Telby, and or Titus add any of that Kentucky bourbon to the county detention center where Torilena currently lives to their sweet tea? We'll keep you informed on all the tea. That's quite the image. AP Amy, you've outdone yourself. Some of these I don't see right away. Well, listen. If you've got... There was a famous poet that said once, "If you have relationship problems, I feel bad for you, son. You might have 99 problems, but be glad this isn't one of them." On September 28th, 2024, Jennifer Gledhill, called Cottonwood Heights police to report her husband missing, telling them that she hadn't seen or heard from them since their argument on September 20th. She claimed that Matthew Gledhill had said he'd be gone for a week and didn't want her to contact him. Strikes me as just a tad odd, eh? But, alas, an informant appears like an angel from heaven or a bat out of hell, depending on your interpretation, and disclosed to police that he'd been having an affair with Gledhill. She visited him on September 22nd, during which time Gledhill revealed a story. Matthew had come home on September 20th and confronted her, accusing her of being unfaithful. Now, he wasn't wrong, but she didn't like it, and in the end, that's what really matters, right? Bueller? Well, she allegedly shot him in the early hours of September 21st while he slept, placed his body in a rooftop storage container, slid it down the stairs, and loaded it into their minivan. According to what I would assume to be that former lover, Gledhill detailed how she smashed Matthew's phone, hid his truck in a nearby neighborhood, and later drove his body north, buried it in a shallow grave, and cleaned the house. Her to-do list that day must have been intense. Coffee, murder, disposal, deep clean. You know, classic Salt Lake City Saturday. Don't you think? Silly freaking person. Clean the house first before you go. Who wants to come home to more work? Jeez, priorities. The informant noted bruises on Gledhill's body, which she explained were from moving her husband's body and cleaning up afterward. So let's go ahead and summarize that with the information from the probable cause document. Jennifer confessed that she shot Matthew in the head with his 9mm Glock while he slept. She shared how she then smashed his phone, hid his truck in a nearby neighborhood, loaded his body into a rooftop cargo container, and buried him up north. She arrived at the informant's, aka the other man's home, visibly distraught, bringing him, prints and telling him she would likely be going away for a long time. She allegedly told him she planned to kill herself if the police figured out what happened, as she didn't want to spend her life in prison. The informant saw the bruises on her arms and legs, which she attributed to moving Matthew's body and cleaning up the scene. I mean, this guy's sitting there like, sure, honey, just come over and give me prints. Really sets the mood for casual dating. Are you with me so far? In addition to that, the informant also provided police with screenshots and recordings of their conversations, showing her discussing cleanup efforts and deleting incriminating messages. She even joked in the text that if someone told her a similar story, she would grab a shovel, implying loyalty to keeping such secrets. Armed with the information, detectives obtained a search warrant for Gledhill's home. When they searched the home, detectives discovered the following: a brand new mattress on the bed frame in the master bedroom, suggesting the original was removed. Bleach stains and strong chlorine odors in the bedroom, indicating recent, thorough cleaning. Several reddish-brown stains on the walls and blinds that tested positive for human blood. Carpet stains under the bed that also tested positive for human blood. Bleach discoloration on the basement carpet, plus a carpet cleaner in the basement, suggesting further attempts at cleanup. I mean, she cleaned so hard, she practically removed the house from existence. When the walls, carpet, and even the bed smell like bleach, I don't know if you're guilty or not, but you're definitely committed. That is for damn sure. Of course, every good criminal knows that they should be leaving their phone or seemingly losing reception. But no, they don't. Investigators tracked Jennifer's phone and car movements using GPS and security footage. Early on September 22nd, her phone was near where Matthew's truck was later found. Later that day, her phone records show it traveling north, consistent with the informant's account of her burying the body. Footage from a Maverick gas station showed Jennifer's vehicle stopping nearby in Centerville, Utah, around 5 p.m. Later that night, around 10:30 p.m., surveillance captured her vehicle at a car wash on Highland Drive, where she spent 30 minutes thoroughly cleaning the vehicle, including vacuuming out the interior. So you can only imagine or hear the collective cuffs that were being prepped for the arrest. On October 15th, 2024, Salt Lake County District Attorney Sam Gill filed 9 felony charges, including first-degree murder, against Jennifer Gledhill for her alleged involvement in the disappearance and presumed death of her husband, Matthew. The charges filed include count 1, murder, domestic violence, counts 2 through 6, obstruction of justice. So she faces multiple charges for allegedly interfering with the investigation. Each charge points to specific actions she allegedly took to conceal evidence. So, just to kind of give you the details of each one, count 2, deleting messages on WhatsApp. Count 3, disposing of the mattress from their shared bedroom. Count 4, thoroughly cleaning the home, particularly the bedroom and basement areas where significant forensic evidence would later be discovered. Count 5, disposing of Matthew's gun, a tan Glock 9mm, which she allegedly used in the shooting. Count 6, renting a moving truck, possibly to assist in transporting or concealing evidence related to Matthew's death. I mean, deleting WhatsApp messages, ditching the mattress, bleaching carpets. She's like Marie Kondo, if the only thing that sparked joy was concealing evidence. Count 7 is the possession of a controlled substance with the intent to distribute. So during a search of her Chrysler Pacifica, detectives discovered what appeared to be psilocybin mushrooms in 6 small bags, packaged as if for individual sale. They also found $206 inside of her purse, and the seats of her vehicle were folded down, increasing cargo capacity. I mean, forget moving the body. Apparently, she was moving product. Count 8, abuse or desecration of a human body, disturbed or concealed her husband's body after death. She allegedly transported it in the rooftop storage container down the steps, placed it in her minivan, and then drove north to bury him in a shallow grave. Count 9, tampering with a witness. This charge suggests that Jennifer may have attempted to prevent others from cooperating in the investigation. Evidence includes messages and statements in which she allegedly tried to influence an informant to remain silent and not disclose information about her actions. The prosecutors requested that Jennifer be held without bail due to the severity of her charges. They said that she was a danger to the community and posed a huge flight risk, having already discussed potential plans to flee to Indiana with her children or take her own life to avoid prison. The good old I'll flee to Indiana plan. That's your best escape route. You're not exactly Ocean's 11 material, my friend. In addition, records showed that Jennifer had previously sought a protective order against Matthew, although the court found that she often provoked conflicts in an attempt to get him in trouble. Prosecutors argue that her calculated actions, sending her children to her parents' house, attempting to erase evidence, and disposing of the body, show a high likelihood of further attempts to avoid accountability if given the chance. And you're probably wondering to yourself, wait, hold the damn phone. Her neighbors saw who watched her kids? Well, that's not the only thing they did. As of October 25th, her parents have been arrested and face obstruction of justice charges. Police booking affidavits alleged that Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill lied to authorities, took part in the cleanup of the man's death, and disposed of evidence. The neighbor previously mentioned informed police that she saw Gledhill's parents cleaning. Quote, a neighbor told police that on September 24th, 2024, she saw the defendant's parents in the defendant's house cleaning. They did not leave the house until 11 p.m. When police confronted the defendant's parents about them being at the defendant's home on September 24th, her mother said she was only there for an hour. The press release stated, the defendant's father said he didn't remember details of the day except that he had been at the defendant's house for a short period of time. I mean, listen, call me old-fashioned, but when cleaning house turns into bleaching carpets and tossing mattresses, it's less spring cleaning and more a scene out of NCIS. I mean, if your neighbor starts using more bleach than the average swimming pool, maybe take a minute to check if it's just laundry day or if something's a little more life-altering. Our next case. My favorite names to say. Nima Momeni. Momeni. That's what I want with my money. Nina Momeni. That's a good one. The man accused of fatally stabbing Cash App founder Bob Lee in San Francisco on April 4th, 2023. Momeni has pleaded not guilty to the murder, claiming self-defense. If you thought Silicon Valley was all beanbags and Bitcoin, think again. This case has it all. A millionaire mogul, family dreams, and enough twists to make a Hitchcock movie blush. So, grab... Mo problems. So grab your gavels. Let's get into this. To recap, it's April 4th, 2023 in San Francisco's East Cut neighborhood, an area that screams luxury condos and overpriced lattes. Bob Lee, a prominent figure in the tech world, was found bleeding out in the street. He'd been stabbed multiple times, including once in the heart, and tragically died from his injuries. Within days, police arrested Nima Momeni, a tech consultant who, spoiler alert, wasn't exactly Lee's best buddy. Now, you'd think the IT guy's biggest crime would be charging too much for turning a router off and on, but no. A prosecution described Momeni as a hot-headed, self-appointed tough guy. Assistant District Attorney Omid Talai argued that Momeni was furious over Lee's friendship with his sister, Kazar, and decided to take matters into his own hands. Literally. According to Talai, Momeni confronted Lee, drove him to a quiet area, and stabbed him 3 times. On the flip side, the defense is spinning a different story. They argue Momeni acted in self-defense after Lee, allegedly under the influence of drugs like cocaine and ketamine, flew into a rage over a joke. Yeah, that's right, a joke. Momeni said, "If it was my last night in town, I'd go hang out with my family instead of F around in strip clubs." Lee didn't take it well. Talk about a bad punchline. But let's not forget the wild card in all of this, Kazar Momeni. Kazar, described by the prosecution as the spark that lit this fiery feud, testified that her relationship with Lee was strictly platonic. She also claimed she was sexually assaulted on the night in question, though not by Lee. Her testimony was complicated, to say the least. On cross-examination, Aranza Villegas, Kazar's friend, contradicted parts of her story, including allegations against Lee's alleged drug dealer. Now, let's talk about the evidence. Surveillance footage shows Momeni and Lee leaving Kazar's apartment together hours before the stabbing. Prosecutors say the footage captures a tense exchange that escalates into violence. Then there's the knife, found near the scene with Lee's blood on the blade and Momeni's DNA on the handle. The defense, however, argues that the police botched their investigation, failing to properly test the evidence. Cue forensic experts throwing around terms like false inclusion and false exclusion. Translation: we're not sure who did what. This week, Nima Momeni took the stand in his own defense, and let me tell you, it was a show. Momeni, who said public speaking isn't his forte, nervously laughed, cried, and even sparred with the prosecutor. He claimed Lee attacked him first, pulling a knife after a bad joke about parenting priorities. His testimony raised more questions than answers, like, why throw the knife over the fence if you're the good guy? And why not tell your sister what happened? Lee's brother, Oliver, didn't hold back, calling Momeni arrogant and entitled. And let's be real, that entitlement was on full display during his testimony. If you ask me, Momeni's performance was less heroic defender and more Villain who thinks he's misunderstood. So, what's next? The jury has questions. Lots of them. The judges are reviewing those questions before Momeni faces the final round of grilling. This is what I'm laughing at. Both sides are digging in for this last stretch, and it's anyone's guess how this will play out. Will the jury believe Momeni's story of self-defense, or will the evidence of premeditation seal his fate? Stay tuned as we follow the twists and turns of California v. Nima Momeni. And with all of that, let's get into our case in chief, shall we? So tonight's case in chief is a doozy of a murder story. It involves a never reported missing person, a child who confessed that they were the perpetrator, and a mother-wife who seemingly killed without remorse, buried her husband in the backyard, blamed the daughter and new lover, and then hid the entire event for years through fake online posts to friends and family of the deceased man. If I have to breathe halfway through a sentence, you've done some shit. Authorities believe that Michael Shaver was killed sometime between November 7th and November 10th, 2015. But he wasn't reported missing until February 16th of 2018, when a friend, Scott Amatuccio, contacted the police and asked for a wellness check because he hadn't heard from Michael in years. November 7th, 2015 was the last day Michael was seen outside of the home, and November 10th, 2015 was the first day he didn't show up for work. When authorities arrived at the house, Laurie Shaver told them that she hadn't seen him since... Be gone. Be gone. You shall not pass. Laurie told the authorities that she hadn't seen him since 2015. At the time, the authorities had no way of knowing how true this statement was. After initially allowing investigators to look inside the residence, deputies said that she stopped cooperating and requested an attorney as the search continued outdoors. In March 2018, one day after Laurie Shaver was named a person of interest in Michael's disappearance, as well as about 2 weeks after the well-being check, investigators discovered articles of clothing and what was she does and what was believed to be part of a human humerus, say that 10 times fast, underneath a shoddy concrete slab described by deputies as a fire pit. On March 9th, 2018, a warrant was served for a cadaver dog and ground penetrating equipment to be brought in for a search on the property. The canine from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office alerted twice to the supposed human remains. And although law enforcement said they did not want to get ahead of themselves and make assumptions, neighbors recalled what they saw as the discovery was made in real time. These neighbors would make Gladys Kravitz jealous with their powers of observation. Quote, the canine was jumping and digging and stuff like that. I saw the cops. They all stopped him and said, here, boy, here. Jade Roop said. Roop, the Roop is on fire. Then he sat down on the spot. They started bringing a whole bunch of equipment and they started digging. While they were digging, all of a sudden, they stopped and backed up and looked, and everyone got down and looked. And then it was, yes, and high-fiving, and so, he's there. He's there. I knew he was there, Wilma Nicholas said. The remains found buried beneath the concrete slab were identified in June 2018 as Michael Shaver. The cause of death was still unknown pending word from the Lake County Medical Examiner's Office. On September 17th, 2020, nearly 5 years After Michael's death, Laurie Shaver was arrested via warrant to face charges of second-degree murder in connection to the death of her husband and accessory after the fact to second-degree murder. According to her arrest affidavit, Laurie Shaver had told Michael's friends that he quit his job and left his family. Yet his friends and coworkers found it odd that Michael would ever leave his 2 children. The affidavit says she said that she last saw him November 7th, 2015. Now, after his disappearance, coworkers, family, and friends reportedly continued to receive text messages from Michael's number, telling them to, quote, leave me alone, or, quote, don't bother me. Detectives believed these, along with Facebook messages, were sent by Laurie Shaver and could be traced back to her home's IP address, that pesky IP address. She had also called his boss at Walt Disney World and told him that Michael left to start a new life and to just sell all of his tools. The manager thought this to be odd, as Michael had been a mechanic and his tools were probably worth several $1,000s. However, over the years, her stories varied. According to detectives, she told some people he moved to Georgia. Others, he was in New York and even California, records showed. Her friends were told Michael Shaver was stalking her. She told her new boyfriend's mother he was a pilot and traveling, and told her supervisor at work that he was in jail for non-payment of child support. And it's just a regular old Skittles bag. In December 2010, a judge granted Laurie Shaver a $52,000 bond amount several months following her arrest and Michael Shaver's death. Initially held without bond, Laurie Shaver would go on to post bail and be released from the Lake County Jail. In May 2023, Laurie Shaver's attorneys claimed Michael Shaver's daughter, who was 7 at the time of his disappearance, had admitted to shooting and killing her father. Attorneys for Laurie Shaver filed a motion May 8, 2023, asking for the judge to reconsider an evaluation of the minor child who confessed to having committed murder. Attorney Jeffrey Wiggs said that the girl got a hold of a gun and shot Michael in order to protect Laurie from purported abuse. The attorney went on to say, too, that Laurie Shaver's ex-boyfriend was also in the home and fired a second shot, striking Michael. My client had come to me in this case and relayed clearly and with supporting evidence that she was not guilty of this crime, Wiggs said in an interview with News 6. We went to the state. We know who committed the crime. We know how the crime was committed. We were basically just pushed out the door. Wiggs went on to say the state didn't have too much concern and instead was worried about law enforcement's pressure. Investigators had spoken to multiple witnesses who described the Shavers' relationship as tumultuous and said the two had separated at one point, while both dating other people. Day 1 of the trial of Laurie Shaver began September 9th, 2024, with opening statements from the state and defense attorneys. On day 2 of the trial, the state called several witnesses, including coworkers, friends, and family members of Michael Shaver. Prosecutors said they had 15 more witnesses to call. Robert Mercado Jr., Michael Shaver's friend and colleague, testified to seeing violence between Laurie and Michael. The last person besides his wife to see him alive was Michael Shaver's coworker at a tractor show on November 7th, 2015. The coworker told investigators Michael and Laurie Shaver were there with their 2 children and did not appear to be getting along. No person ever saw or verbally spoke to Michael Shaver after November 7th, 2015. Investigators said there's no evidence Michael Shaver existed anymore after that date. Now, on day 3 of the trial, Laurie Shaver's new husband, Travis Filmer, spoke of what he knew about Laurie's relationship with Michael and was asked why Michael's disappearance didn't raise more questions for him. Prosecutors noted that by December 2016, Laurie had entered a commitment ceremony with a new husband. That was Filmer. Filmer, who helped pour... Filmer looks like... Never mind. Filmer, who helped pour the concrete at the Shaver home, oh great, testified that he did not notice anything unusual. Dirt was already graded, Filmer said, adding that he had never met Michael and became concerned only when law enforcement arrived in 2018. Prosecutors suggested Filmer's testimony differed from his original statements. More testimony from another man, Robert Proper, testified that Filmer knew Michael Shaver was dead, saying Filmer said Michael, quote, may no longer be walking this earth. Filmer, however, said he didn't mean it the way the prosecutors were framing it, which is like the equivalent of no. The jury also heard from a banker who said that a loan was taken out in Shaver's name, but was never able to be repaid. In addition, jurors heard from witnesses who claimed Laurie sold them guns after Michael's death, and from a firearms expert who said the bullet recovered in the investigation could have come from one of the couple's weapons. However, the expert noted could have been, but can't say scientifically. Vanessa Townsend, whose husband had an affair with Laurie Shaver. Good grief, Laurie. What? Tearfully recalled receiving a gift of flowers and a card purporting to be from Michael, which prosecutors said was sent by the defendant. Blowing the whistle on Laurie's brief affair with Vanessa's husband, Jareem. Townsend told the jurors she received messages from Michael Shaver's Facebook account in 2016, along with the flower delivery that suggested her husband was cheating with Laurie. One message read, "Roses are red. Strap in." I'll wait. No, you don't need the full 5 point. Okay. Roses are red. Violets are blue. My wife is a whore, and your husband is too. Check Facebook. I don't think that's how the poem ends normally, but check Facebook. Townsend said the messages also included photos of the affair and urged her to get a divorce attorney. Prosecutors were able to prove these messages and flowers were sent well after Michael went missing. Investigators testified that Laurie's bank account was linked to the charge for the flower delivery, and logins to Michael's Facebook account after his death came from the same IP address as Laurie's account. Wilma Nichols, a neighbor of the Shavers, testified that she could see into the Shavers' backyard from her porch. And if there was anybody who'd look like they'd know if they could see into a backyard from a porch, Nichols recalled concrete being added to a fire pit in 2016 and noticed a foul odor lingering for months before that. Quote, "Son and I are on the back porch, and I remember him wrinkling his nose up and asked if I smelled that, but nothing rose to the level of alerting law enforcement." Nichols testified. Defense attorney Jeffrey Wigg spent much of the afternoon of day 3 cross-examining Lieutenant Tamara Dale, one of the primary investigators on the case, trying to poke holes and cast doubt on how thorough the criminal investigation was before a charging decision was made. On day 4 of the trial, the state rested after calling Jareem Townsend to testify about his affair with Laurie, and it's wow. All right, he's really going for that Walking Dead look. Tumultuous ending, and also recalling a Lake County. Oh, it's pronounced Jeremy? Well, allow me to say, it is spelled Jereme. So I assume what you're getting at is it's the Florida Jeremy. I kind of like Jareem, though. He kind of looks like a. He's not a Jareem. He's a nightmare. You know what? We're going to go back one more sentence. Let's start again. On day 4 of the trial, the state rested after calling Jeremy Townsend to testify about his affair with Laurie and its tumultuous ending, and also recalling a Lake County detective who reviewed a trove of Facebook, cell phone, and bank records for both Laurie and Michael Shaver. Jeremy Townsend denied he shot Michael Shaver and helped hide the body. He testified that he had never met Michael and was not there for his death. And now I got to think about what he sounds like. I did not know who Mike was. That's it. Townsend said, rejecting the defense's claims. He was lying about his interactions with the family. Aren't you glad I stopped that just for that one, those like 5 words? The defense case began after lunch and was dominated by testimony from 15-year-old, soon to be 16, Isabel Shaver, as well as the defendant herself. Isabel told the jury that her father threatened to kill her mother, prompting her to grab a gun and shoot him. Isabel and Laurie Shaver both described a tense, abusive home environment before providing a remarkable account of how Michael Shaver ostensibly died. Most notably, alleging that Isabel shot her father in the back of the head to protect her mom from being an alleged assault by Michael on the back patio of the home, with Jeremy Townsend then purportedly shooting Michael once more and telling the others to leave so he could, quote, take care of it. Quote, and I grabbed her and I grabbed her gun and I went back out and I went to the door. The door was already open and he had my mom on the ground still laying on the ground, still kicking her, and I shot him, the daughter claimed. Laurie later alleged that her ex-boyfriend, Jeremy Townsend, quickly walked over and shot Michael a second time to ensure he was dead. Laurie also accused Townsend of disposing of Michael while she was taking her children to school. However, the autopsy showed that Michael Shaver had been shot only once in the head from back to front, which cast much doubt on both Isabel and Laurie's narratives. Laurie testified that Michael grabbed her and pinned her down because he was mad she was involved in another relationship. She said he was beating her and placed her head and neck under his foot. During the daughter's cross-examination, she struggled to explain some of the details of her recollection of the events, including why she placed the shooting in May instead of November. She testified the event happened in the spring or early summer, tying it to a summer vacation. Laurie also struggled to recount her husband's whereabouts during that 6-month gap in her story. Now, the trial ended on day 5, with the state and defense attorneys both providing closing arguments for their case. After nearly 4 hours of deliberations, the jury of 6 returned with a verdict of guilty of second-degree murder, but not guilty of accessory after the fact. The jury had several possible charges against Shaver, including second-degree murder, third-degree murder, manslaughter, accessory after the fact, or not guilty on any or all of the accounts. This case relied entirely on circumstantial evidence, which was all discovered and developed well over 3 years after Michael's disappearance. As is often the case with circumstantial evidence, prosecutors built their case brick by brick, one piece of evidence supporting the prior one, to win a conviction. After the trial, authorities commented that there wasn't a detective in the department who hadn't touched the case at some point during the investigation, in order to bring the case to trial with evidence that would result in the conviction. The investigation and building of the case had been meticulous. Conversely, Laurie Shaver's decision to testify after her teenage daughter took the stand was apparently a, quote, game day decision. Laurie and her attorney felt that during the daughter's cross-examination, several jurors could be seen avoiding looking at her as she stumbled to account for her statements that the shooting happened in May of 2016, 6 months after Michael was alleged to have vanished, as was mentioned earlier in this story. Quote, I let her, the daughter, give her narrative, but I think Miss Shaver felt she looked practiced or rehearsed, and I think that inspired her in part to testify, Laurie Shaver's attorney said. She leaned on me about that, and I just finally turned to her and said, if that's what you feel, you need to go ahead and do it. It appears her decision didn't help her situation. Laurie Shaver will be sentenced on November 25th, 2024 at 9 a.m. She faces a sentence of 25 years to life. And now, let's get into those just desserts. Oh, boy. On Monday, one of the most high-profile and expensive trials in Indiana history, the jury in the Indiana v. Richard Allen case came back with a verdict. After 18 hours of deliberation, the jury found Richard Allen guilty for the murders and kidnapping of Liberty German and Abby Williams. Now, this verdict has sparked significant controversy. Allen was convicted primarily based on circumstantial evidence and forensic findings, but questions remain about whether the case was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Or did the prosecution win by playing a really convincing game of Clue? One of the prosecution's strongest pieces of evidence was an unspent bullet found at the crime scene. This link, established through ballistics analysis, played a pivotal role in connecting Allen to the murders. But some critics think this evidence might be more like a plot of a mystery novel, seemingly important, but could it just be a red herring? Ballistics comparisons, while widely used, have faced scrutiny in recent years, with some experts labeling them as less scientifically rigorous than DNA analysis. The defense strongly contested this evidence, emphasizing the potential for error and raising doubts about its reliability. Additionally, Allen's defense pointed to a lack of direct evidence. No DNA or physical traces definitively tied Allen to the crime scene. Witness testimonies in the trial were crucial, as several witnesses placed an individual matching the general description of bridge guy near the crime scene, though none directly identified Allen. Like a game of Where's Waldo. We know he's in the picture. We're not sure if it's the same guy. The trial also saw the defense attempting to redirect attention toward alternative suspects. They criticized law enforcement for potentially overlooking other leads in their focus on Allen. This critique feeds into broader concerns about procedural issues, with some observers suggesting that investigators may have succumbed to public pressure to resolve the case swiftly, potentially leading to confirmation bias. Richard Allen confessed to the Delphi murders during conversations with prison personnel and other inmates. However, these admissions were not documented through formal interviews, raising concerns about their admissibility. The defense argued these statements were unreliable, influenced by Allen's deteriorating mental health due to his treatment in custody. Allen's attorneys stated he was held in solitary confinement, enduring harsh conditions that exacerbated his mental health issues. Videos reportedly showed him beating his head against the wall, eating his own feces, and more disturbing and erratic behavior. They argued this environment coerced Allen into making irrational or false statements, framing his confessions as the product of duress. Allen's scheduled for sentencing December 20th and is facing up to 130 years, and it is strongly believed that Judge Gall will give him the maximum sentence. Now, for the families of the victims, the conviction represents a step towards justice, but it also highlights the emotional weight of unresolved questions. Was the verdict truly based on irrefutable evidence, or did the prosecution succeed in persuading the jury with a compelling narrative built on circumstantial and contested forensic elements? Critics worry that without more concrete proof, the verdict could set a concerning precedent for future cases relying on similar evidence. Now, whether this case is a triumph of justice or an example of a miscarriage of justice is a question that will continue to fuel debates for years to come. And, as we usually say, stay tuned. Because in a world of true crime, in this world of true crime, the story is far from over. Moving on to McKinley Louisma, a defense that is basically, I was there, but I didn't do it, isn't much of a defense. But it was all McKinley Louisma had. His DNA wasn't found on the suspected weapons used to kill Melody Hoffman 20, so a lame defense was all he had against the facts that the weapons had been in his car. Cell phone data put him at the scene. He admitted that he had been there at the time, and he'd had an intimate relationship with the victim. Testimony resumed on Tuesday, with the jury seeing an hours-long videotaped interview between Louisma and law enforcement. He claimed Dakota Van Patten had coerced him into a kidnap for ransom scheme that had gone horribly wrong. He claimed that it was Van Patten who tied up Hoffman, beat her, tortured her, and then killed her, all while threatening Louisma to not intervene and later to not tell authorities. Louisma admitted to handling evidence and weapons during the incident at the commands of Van Patten, but denied involvement in Hoffman's murder. Investigators grilled Louisma on inconsistencies in his account, highlighting gaps in his timeline and questioning his narrative of coercion. Louisma said in the interview that he repeatedly asked Van Patten to let him take her to a hospital and drop her off, promising that neither of them would say anything. The detective was clearly skeptical of the narrative. "Just so happens that you touched all the evidence while he kept his gloves on?" asked Ryan Kedley, a special agent with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. "Amazing how that works. How convenient. This criminal mastermind, Dakota," added Kedley in that interview, poking holes in Louisma's account. If you remember, it was mentioned last week that Dakota was the mastermind who signed Melody's cell phone into his personal hotspot. Ooh. At the end of the interview, Kedley asked Louisma what he thought Van Patten would say when the detective told him that Louisma said Van Patten acted alone. Louisma said that Van Patten would blame him. The final day of testimony came from the medical examiner, who described Hoffman's injuries in detail. The autopsy revealed Hoffman likely died from strangulation by a rope or similar-sized object. They found marks around the front part of her neck. There was also evidence of stab wounds and blunt force trauma inflicted before and after she died. Now, central to prosecutors' case was a piece of paracord rope found in Louisma's vehicle that forensic experts testified had Hoffman's DNA. The medical examiner who conducted Hoffman's autopsy, Kelly Cruz, well, that is just a nice name, testified that the dimensions of the rope matched the quarter-inch ligature marks seen on Hoffman's neck, consistent with strangulation. Another significant revelation came when Cruz testified that blood tests confirmed that Hoffman was pregnant at the time of her death. The prosecution is suggesting this discovery added motive to the murder, suggesting that Hoffman may have informed or was planning to inform Louisma of her pregnancy. The ME testified that the levels were low enough that they would not show up in a home pregnancy test because those don't use blood for the test. She agreed with the defense attorney that it was possible that Melody did not know she was pregnant. She also agreed with prosecutors that Melody could have suspected it. It was clear from testimony that no one knew about her pregnancy, and it could not be proven that Melody herself knew. Despite this, prosecutors believed that Melody knew she was pregnant and informed Louisma, and this was his motive for his actions. They acknowledged that they could not prove he knew of the pregnancy or that this was a motive for him. But they also reminded the jury that the state didn't have to prove why. They only had to show who, how, and when, and that they had done this. The state rested after the ME testified. The defense rested without calling any witnesses. On Thursday, the final day of the trial, the jury received instructions and heard closing arguments from both the state and the defense. Louisma's trial was marked by the admission of technological advanced evidence, from metadata recovered from phones to satellite tracking, surveillance footage, DNA evidence, and more. Prosecutors layered piece by piece to their forensic analysis. They also included evidence of bloodied items found in Louisma's car and at the home of his co-defendant, Van Patten. Walmart footage showing him buying machetes and gloves at Walmart. And Facebook. You know, Walmart, at what point are you going to get like go on counter offensive? You guys are like, it's like true crimers are us. Walmart footage showing him buying machetes and gloves, and Facebook and Snapchat messages, which they argued showed premeditation. Still, much of the evidence was circumstantial without DNA or fingerprint evidence directly tying Louisma to items connected to Hoffman's murder. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours before they returned guilty verdicts on all charges. Sentencing is going to be on December 6, 2024 at 1:20 p.m. Well, moving to our next case, today's episode of Family Feud Gone Horribly Wrong takes us to Landover, Maryland, which is a quiet suburban neighborhood where the most exciting event is usually a yard sale. But on May 23rd, 2023, this tranquility was shattered by a family drama that makes Game of Thrones look like a tea party. Let's meet the cast. We've got Margaret Craig, who's a 71-year-old matriarch who, after a lifetime of hard work, probably thought her biggest challenge would be figuring out how to use Netflix. Little did she know her own daughter had other plans. Then you got Candace Craig. At 46, Candace was living with her mother, possibly because the rent was free and the Wi-Fi was strong. She had a unique approach to family finances, namely treating her mother's bank account like it was her own personal piggy bank. And then you had Celia Hardy, Candace's 19-year-old daughter, who learned that family bonding can sometimes involve activities that are less about trust falls and more about felony charges. So Prince George's County Police said it all started on May 23rd, 2023, when Margaret noticed a few unauthorized charges on her credit card. Now, most people would call the bank. Margaret, however, decided to confront Candace directly. I mean, picture it, a 71-year-old woman squaring off with it just like that. That was in my head. Squaring off with her middle-aged daughter over fraudulent credit card charges. It's like an episode of Judge Judy meets the Wonder Years. Now, Candace, faced with the prospect of her financial shenanigans being exposed, decided that the best way to handle the situation was murder, because rational responses in science. Now, after the murder, the next day, Candace realized she had a bit of a problem, a body to dispose of. Enter Celia, who was roped into this mess faster than you can say accessory after the fact, after she discovered her grandmother's remains in a blue bin in her bedroom. Candace's brilliant plan, well, what could that possibly be? Dismember the body with a chainsaw and burn the remains on a barbecue grill. Nothing says innocent like a backyard barbecue in the middle of the night. They even went so far as to season the body to mask the smell. Yes, you heard me right. Seasoning. McCormick, Mrs. Dash, Simply Organic, Hannibal Lecter. Yep, right there. Unsurprisingly, the neighbors did notice that around May 27th, 2023, they noticed something was going on, because, when you're burning a body in your backyard, it's kind of hard to keep that under wraps. They called the fire department, who arrived to find nothing. They found nothing. Why? Because Candace and Celia had already moved the remains back inside. But there was this lingering smell, and eventually someone called the police for a welfare check. Now, officers arrived May 28th, 2023. They were greeted by Candace, who must have thought she could charm her way out of this. Trying to distract a police officer from what the obvious smell was coming from the backyard, well, that's like trying to convince a bloodhound it's sniffing lavender when you're in front of him covered in bacon grease. Probably shouldn't have put... You got the visual. Candace must have met those cops and said, "Nothing to see here." But the backyard was belching out smoke signals of, "Help! Crime happening here! Come back here!" I probably could have done something cooler, like a Mickey voice. "Oh, help!" In short, she was cleaning up a break in a dam with a brawny towel. The police, upon entering the basement, were hit with the unmistakable odor of decomposition. They found 3 white plastic trash bags containing what appeared to be human remains, a chainsaw with human tissue on the blade, and blood spatter throughout the basement. I don't even think they were trying to hide it. Candace was arrested on the spot. Celia, who, realizing that I was just following orders, isn't really a great defense, so she was taken into custody as well. Now, fast forward to October of 2024. Candace's trial began, and it was a damn spectacle. The prosecution presented over 600 pieces of evidence, including the chainsaw, the trash bags, and the seasoning. I suppose that detail was important. Celia testified against her mother, detailing this gruesome process of dismemberment and disposal. She had previously pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact, hoping for a lighter sentence. Now, the defense tried to argue that Candace was not in her right mind, which... You can't do that to me. That's so funny. Which perhaps that was right. But it's really hard to make that case when there's evidence of premeditation, like ordering a chainsaw online. She must have used Prime same-day shipping. It seems like something Bezos would greenlight with the chainsaw. Prosecutors said that Margaret Craig was found with a trash bag over her head. In other words, Candace was found with the trash bag over her. Medical examiner testimony found that she died at the hands of someone. That is a direct quote. At the hands of someone. Her death was no accident. Prosecutors argued, given that Candace Craig sought her daughter Celia Hardy's help in covering up Margaret Craig's death. Hardy's accused of helping cover her up, but has testified and cooperated during the trial. Defense attorneys representing Candace took issue with the evidence discussed in the trial, arguing that some detectives and lab workers didn't do enough DNA tests. Only 10 items were tested, which didn't include the car in the home's driveway. They also argued that DNA evidence from the crime scene belonged to an unidentified man who may have killed Margaret Craig. After an 8-day trial, the jury found Candace Craig guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, second-degree murder, tampering with the evidence, and disposing of a body in an unauthorized place. She now faces a lengthy prison sentence, which is probably the least surprising outcome in this whole saga. Celia, who cooperated with the prosecution, is awaiting sentencing. She's likely hoping for some leniency. Now, Prince George's County State's attorney, Aisha Braveboy, left the courtroom shortly after the verdict was read and told reporters it was a critical step towards justice in a case that rocked the region. She said, quote, "Words cannot express how devastated I was when I heard about this case, how angry I was, how committed my offices were to getting justice. And as with any case, it is not easy. There was a tremendous amount of evidence in this case. It took a lot to put everything together." Among her deepest concerns were the children of Candace Craig and the family members who witnessed the violence. And she continued on to say, "You have to live with this. You have 3 young girls who now know that their mother killed their grandmother, dismembered her body, tried to set her on fire, and then tried to blame them. I can't even imagine the therapy, the support, everything that they're going to need to grow into strong young women. It's almost unbelievable. But it happened. It happened." How do you reconcile that with the fact that she took very deliberate, specific steps and in deciding how she wanted to go about grilling her mother, used seasoning to mask the smell? These are very deliberate steps that she took. So, if she has some sanity, it certainly isn't something that impacts all of her other thinking. So, well, what do we learn from this tale of suburban horror and terror? If you're going to commit credit card fraud, maybe don't do it against someone you live with. When confronted with your crimes, the correct response is not murder. If you must dispose of a body, which, to be clear, you shouldn't, don't do it in your backyard where all your neighbors can see your business. And finally, seasoning is for food. It's not for covering up crimes. You'd think that would be easy to know. Well, here we are at the end of another wild late night romp through the criminal underbelly of humanity. Tonight we covered everything from barbecue misadventures that would make a fire marshal cry, to betrayals that redefine bad blood faster than a Taylor Swift breakup song. Seriously. If tonight's episode has taught us anything, it's that the line between quirky family drama and front page true crime headline is thinner than Candace Craig's excuses. Let's break it down. Springer style. Life's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright terrifying. But whether you're grappling with a family feud, a workplace betrayal, or a mystery so bizarre it'd make Hitchcock blush, one thing is clear. We all have choices. Some people choose forgiveness. Others choose chainsaws. But every one of these cases serves as a dark reminder, scratch that phrasing, as insightful commentary of how fragile trust can be. It can crumble over money, misunderstandings, or sometimes just plain stupidity. And while we joke about it, because humor's how we cope, the ripple effects of these choices are no laughing matter. So, as you close your laptops or shut off your TVs tonight, hug your loved ones a little tighter. Or, if they're acting suspicious, maybe just give them a long, meaningful stare. Quietly double check the backyard fire pit. Either way, remember, life is short. And sometimes it's too short when the wrong people make the wrong decisions. I mean, you know what I always say, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, if someone offers to host a barbecue, maybe just bring your own food. Now listen, in terms of the channel, we've got so much coming up, so much to offer, and we are growing rapidly. Please share with your friends. We're a pretty welcoming community, I think. Coming up this week are 2 episodes of Midday Missing with Terry at 12 p.m. CST Central. We have the transcript with me on Wednesday at 9 Eastern. What will we be reading? Your guess is as good as mine. Friday around 7 Eastern, a new episode of Women on Death Row will be released. And at 9 Eastern, the same night, is the Hey Ho Show, which is a variety show where we cover the ridiculous, the funny, and the downright insane, which checks out because our hosts are just zany. I can say that. I am one. We think you're going to like it, though. You can also check out our library of videos, which has grown exponentially. I think there's something over 200 or something like that. The easiest way to find something you're looking for is by going to our playlists. We've got True Crime and Wine Time Live, Hey Ho Show, Night Court, Midday Missing, Dearest Mother's Darkest Secret, The Transcript, and Women on Death Row. Those are shows that we put together with a lot of love and time for you all. If you're as opinionated as all of us, leave us a review, a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, again, leave that comment below. Follow us on social media and for more updates during the week and behind-the-scenes content. We can be found pretty much anywhere as TCWT Media. Be sure to tune in next week when we cover the hottest true crime and trial updates, and we take a deep dive into the case of Wisconsin v. Maxwell Anderson. And that's it for Night Court, where the verdicts are questionable, the humor is, well, the same, and the court is always in session, even if it shouldn't be. Remember, justice may be blind, but we've got 20/20 hindsight and a sense of humor sharper than Candace Craig's chainsaw. Good night, stay judgmental, and we'll see you next time. Court is adjourned. I am JT. See you next Sunday at 8 for another episode, Night Owls. Be good to yourselves and to others. Bye, everyone.